In 1994, long before she created Minecraft, unproblematic trans ally, Hatsune Miku, spearheaded another video game franchise with a devoted cult following. Inspired by the success of Sonic the Hedgehog, Shiny Entertainment bought the rights to one of Miku's original characters, to star in a mascot platformer. EARTHWORM Jim stood out from his many Mega Drive contemporaries by boasting flawless run-and-gun gameplay, unbelievably charming animations, and a wacky, irreverent sense of humour that affectionately parodied both classic sci-fi and gaming tropes. And much like Sonic, an accompanying TV show was created to release alongside the game's sequel. In late 1996, EARTHWORM Jim's animated series began to air, lasting 2 seasons or 23 episodes in total. I remember loving this show as a kid, because its comedy was manic, surreal, and fourth wall breaking. A bit like the show Freakazoid. Actually, a lot like Freakazoid. Right down to the superheroics being a framing device for what was quite clearly just a comedy show. But I never actually saw Freakazoid as a kid, so EARTHWORM Jim helped me to scratch an itch that I didn't even know I had.
EARTHWORM Jim, Freakazoid, EARTHWORM Jim, Freakazoid.
Now this is where I might fall into the trap that so many other internet reviewers do, where I try making goofs over a show that is admittedly much funnier than I am. But being unfunny has never stopped me before, so let's go.
Despite his great big muscles and his really big ray gun, Jim is still an earthworm, but then he's the only one.
So this theme song, yeah, it's one of those that hammers you just hard enough that you hear it once and then it's stuck with you for the rest of your life. You're welcome. Season 1, Episode 1 is Sidekicked.
We join our hero EARTHWORM Jim and his faithful sidekick Peter Puppy as they dangle from a cliff on the planet of unusually tall things. The nefarious Professor Monkey for a head moves in to destroy Jim, riding atop his fearsome Spoctronic proto-bluntifier, which generates mighty blasts of static electricity by rubbing its many feet.
Already, I'm quite sure you see what I mean. You can't take much piss out of a farce. This is just very funny. This is the cold open of the first episode, and yet it's hitting us with a previously on for an episode that doesn't exist. Which every episode does, because that's a very funny bit.
We join our stalwart hero trapped in a band of hypersteel, lowered into a vat of boiling acid in the midst of astonishing peril, as usual.
You were right, little buddy. We should have never swapped heads.
What this episode does do is establish Jim's relationship with his sidekick, Peter Puppy, who, in keeping with his very differently designed game counterparts, goes berserk and attacks Jim anytime he takes damage.
Nice doggy.
Let us flee, my simian skullmate.
Anyways, Jim is hacked off with Peter, as so many players of the game would be after his bastard of an escort mission, and decides that he needs a new sidekick.
I understand. You're saying I'm a worthless lump of gunk, garbage, filth, cesspool scrapings.
Great then, so long as you understand.
Jim is voiced by Dan, Homer Simpson, Castaneda, who Jim as a character is not wholly different to, especially with lines like that. This gives Jim's comic delivery a lot of the same punch that classic Simpsons did. And somehow, the ensemble cast are just as entertaining.
Psychro, Scourge of the Spaceways, has been summoned before the despicable queen, pulsating, bloated, festering, sweaty, pus-filled, malformed slug for a butt.
Yes, that is the final boss's full name. EARTHWORM Jim was a very good game. And if you can believe it, she's actually far less repulsive than her in-game counterparts. The Queen here has it out for her sister, Princess What's-Her-Face, and orders Psychro to ransom her for Jim's supersuits. And Jim, leaving a now depressed Peter behind, goes shopping for a new sidekick.
Whoop and cough, boy. Mr. Forehead Vein. Ew. Master of the Flying Toupee.
Jim, however, spots the perfect sidekick just off screen. Without decent help, Jim is cornered by a mutant alligator and promptly eaten, which segues very suddenly into a mini-sode about Evil the Cat, who is trying in vain to murder an innocent child, with oddly hilarious results.
A minor setback.
More sausages, Ralph!
A minor setback. A minor setback.
Cutting back to the main story, a remorseful Peter vents his frustration with Snots, which is a little bit cheeky when you consider that Snot was Jim's closest sidekick in the games. Like, Peter, you already stole this guy's thunder. Meanwhile, Jim escapes from the alligator by beating it up from the inside, only to realize that he was on the complete wrong planet, leading him on a wild crow chase.
I told you to watch your step, Whoopee Cushion Man!
We then get familiar with Princess What's-Her-Name, who, being super strong herself, takes delight in dunking on her captor. In a very literal sense. This ends when Psychro detains her even more.
If Earthworm Jim doesn't goof up his super suit in the next 20 minutes, you will face a fate worse than death.
Such as?
Huh? I don't know, you know.
Eventually, Peter decides to stow away in a bid to prove himself, while Jim journeys to the
Boulevard of Acute Discomfort!
with Turns His Eyelids Inside Out Boy, my least favourite sidekick of the bunch.
No, not the eyelid trick. It's my one weakness.
Yeah, same.
Well, you guys will believe anything. Surrender!
This scene of Jim running from Psychro accompanies the end credits of every single episode, complete with unfitting music. I have no idea why. Anyways, Peter hulks out, saving the day with incredible violence.
Peter, I was wrong. You're the best sidekick ever. Now, if you could just give me back my leg.
Jim then tickles Peter, which makes him belch and revert back to normal. I guess because the time-based cooldown from the game would have been far too normal. And with that, the princess is saved. That is, until the episode ends with a... Yeah, see? I told you. The ending theme of the game was an absolute banger. I have no idea why they couldn't use it. The final episode of Season 1, episode 13 overall, is the Anti-Fish, which begins with Psychro unleashing his de-evolution ray.
It's too horrible! And yet I stare, perversely fascinated.
That is the best summary of the internet I've ever seen. And also, this has no bearing on the rest of the episode. The ongoing opening bit is just a non sequitur now, which honestly makes it even better. The real story begins with Bob the Killer Goldfish, who, like Psychro, is also voiced by Jim Cummings, albeit with a southern twang. Number 4 is also here. He is precious and must be protected.
I shall awaken the anti-fish from his ancient slumber. With his incalculable might, I shall rule the universe! Wake up, you stupid hunter-face man! Wake up! Wake up! I said you wake up!
Fuzzy Lumpkins. It's the prototype of the Fuzzy Lumpkins voice. That is amazing.
Get off of my property! Now!
Jim turns up to stop Bob's plan, only to accidentally stir the anti-fish himself.
I smell worm.
Kevin Michael Richardson? Okay, are you trying to butter me up by putting all my favorite voice actors in one episode? Because damn if it isn't working. We then have another cutaway to a completely random sequence, much like the Evil the Cat one from before. Turns out this is how they account for shorter episodes, so I guess I'm just gonna throw the highlights at you again.
In the woods, he encountered a terrible, fearsome worm, bearing his awful fangs.
Excuse me, actually, I don't have ears. You see, worms of the annelid family.
Just say the line! Eat dirt, foul defiler of trees! I can't even beat that worm in my imagination!
Back to the main plot, the anti-fish lays out his plan.
I have but one purpose, to eat the biggest worm in existence.
Not the great worm spirit!
Nailed it on the first guess.
So, Jim has to travel back in time, rescue his god, and save reality. Which means forming an uneasy truce with Bob.
Our heroes and villains travel back through time in the Space Fish by opening a manhole in the space-time continuum and entering the time sewer.
Ugh, sewer levels, man. Can't escape them. Especially when they constitute space-time. Finding themselves trapped in a prehistoric Earth, Jim has a tussle with a T-Rex, which he defeats and then banishes with the very same time hole that they came through.
You moron! You just sealed the manhole and trapped us in the past forever!
Okay. Let's acknowledge that I made a mistake and move on.
Their last resort to reach the dawn of time and save the Great Worm Spirit is to visit
The restaurant of time!
where finishing the special dish will allow them to time travel. This feels like something Douglas Adams would have written into The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which, honestly, is the highest praise I can give to any sci-fi concept.
Haggis! The heart, lungs, and liver of a sheep boiled in its own stomach.
Yeah, I know that. Get it away!
Excuse me, I'm just eating some haggis. Because it slaps. Screw the haters. It turns out that they can't pay for the bill, forcing them to wash dishes while trapped in stasis.
How pseudo long will it take? About 1,000 pseudo years. Well, that about does it. Hold it! Surely even a villain such as yourself wouldn't go without tipping the waiter! Of course not.
Okay, that might be the hardest I've laughed at anything in VidAMs today. 10 out of 10 joke, that was perfect. In a final confrontation with the anti-fish, they realise that it cannot be harmed from the outside. So Jim charges up his suit, offers himself up as an appetizer, and takes them both out with a self-destruct.
Jim's sacrifice has not gone unnoticed. Oh no. In gratitude, I shall restore him to normal.
Okay, now that is not actually Christopher Walken. Yes, I checked. But that does beg the question of why the god of this universe has Christopher Walken's voice? Why does Christopher Walken keep getting cast as a godlike figure?
Okay, the truce is over. Time to destroy you.
With Bob's ship completely drained, Jim and Peter blast off. They then hastily revisit a completely forgotten B-plot, and the episode ends with a... Alright, starting off Season 2, we have the origins of Peter Puppy.
We join Earthworm Jim and Peter Puppy as they meet the President of the United States.
Oh my god, how many times am I going to see the President of the United States in VidAMs? Alright, well, which one is it?
Hey, you don't look like the president.
I'm one of those generic presidents they use on TV to keep shows from becoming dated.
You genre-savvy wankers. You just undermined my entire point. I was trying to make a goof about this show, and you like hit me with the Uno reverse card. I can only grudgingly applaud you. So this episode starts the exact same way as the first one. Now with Peter getting injured and going berserk in a whole bunch of different inopportune places. Rather than firing Peter again or buying him some steel-toed boots, Jim decides to get to the bottom of his affliction.
I can't remember a thing, except a certain squeak toy. Young love, the romance, the passion.
All right, that's way more than I want to know about you and your squeak toy.
Yeah, unlike the games where he's decidedly an alien, this Peter used to be a regular dog. And a good chunk of this episode is spent trying to unlock his dormant memories.
Houston, we have a problem.
You know, that was real funny about the first 500 times I've heard it.
With Ben Stein, telephone psychics, and surgery all proving useless, Jim turns to an extreme measure.
Our minds are becoming one. Becoming one. Becoming one. Check it out, Peter. Our minds are one, and this is our astral body.
Never have I felt so violated.
While astrally projecting, Pim, or Jeter if you prefer, are able to recall the cause of Peter's sapience.
Vacuum cleaners are actually canine-specific trans-dimensional portals. I hurtled through the trans-dimensional ether to face... the ultimate terror of all dogs!
Hello, little puppy. Is Boss sicking evil spirits on puppies again?
Yes! Henchrat there was created specifically for this show, and is so clearly a cross between a Skaven and a Space Marine that I cannot help but love him.
I was returned to Earth. There, I found myself mocked and reviled by all who saw me.
What hellish reality is this where a talking dog would be met with anything but utter adoration? Anyways, they then revisit their first meeting.
Note to self, do not throw supervillains at buses full of orphans.
Wow, that is one of the most passive-aggressive responses to executive meddling that I've ever seen. And contrasting that, the following moment is genuinely really wholesome.
But lock me up anyway, okay? I don't care. I'm an outcast, a freak.
You're kidding. What a coincidence! I'm an outcast and a freak!
The flashback could stop here, but Jim insists that they both continue, as they then remember the beginning of their heroic careers. And the more I watch this episode, the more it feels like it would have been a good opening to the series as a whole.
I'll just wear the shirt.
No, please, we're the last one. Please, please, please.
Jim takes out a newspaper ad seeking a supervillain, which, in the modern day, I guess would be presented as a Tinder joke. And Evil the Cat turns up to answer it.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total oblivion. I must not fear.
Is that the Litany of Fear? God damn, the sci-fi references in this show.
What's in the box?
Ow! They defeat evil using the morning newspaper. Why not?
It's a good thing few people are aware of the awesome destructive power of origami.
Minor setback.
And finally, they snap back to reality and set off to undo Peter's curse.
Tear us limb from limb, shred us into coleslaw, throw us into an atomic furnace. They're all good?
But whatever you do, don't remove the evil spirit from Peter.
That is precisely what I shall do.
Unfortunately, this reverts Peter back into a normal dog, leaving Jim at evil's mercy. And with Jim about to be melted, Peter regains his curse and saves the day, embracing his monstrous form. And finally, the episode ends with a... Do you remember how I said that Earthworm Jim was loosely based on Sonic? Well, in the very same vein, the final episode of his debut animated series is also a Christmas episode. Episode 23, For Whom the Jingle Bells Toll.
Looking good, your malformedness.
Well, I feel good about myself, and that's the important thing.
Ah, yes, for if we cannot love ourselves, the toads of fate shall feast upon our entrails!
You know what? Good message. I think we all need this guy in our lives.
This Santa visits every home on Earth in one night. What fantastic power he must have. I'm going to turn you from the symbol of all that's good into the ultimate icon of evil.
Oh boy!
Okay, so far this is not all too different from Sonic Christmas Blast, albeit with a Jim Cummings Santa instead. But yeah, a cartoon plot about a kidnapped Santa? That's pretty par for the course.
That's not the real Santa.
Not the real Santa?
No, mall Santas are merely the actual Santa's duly deputized representatives, ordained in a mysterious arcane ceremony held under cover of darkness at the North Pole.
Huh. I've actually always considered this to be Santa Claus lore, and it's nice to see it acknowledged in a piece of media outside of Home Alone. Anyways, Jim wants a pony.
My psychical beardling tell me the real Santa Claus is in terrible danger.
What about my pony?
So Jim, Peter, and Princess What's-Her-Name all head to the North Pole.
Oh well, at least we still have Hanukkah and Kwanzaa.
You don't understand, puppy boy. Without Christmas, the U.S. economy will collapse, anarchy will reign, and I won't get my pony.
I love that this show considers the economic damage that a ruined or stolen Christmas would cause. A lot of Christmas media neglects that.
What kind of elves are you?
Well, actually, we just call ourselves elves to get the babes.
Oh, does it work?
Not even a little.
Same. No, I won't be elaborating on that. Anyways, the gang head to the
Personifications of Abstract Concepts Club
in order to get more info.
I even saw a stinking cartoon about him.
Oh man, I hope they didn't do that same old worn-out story where Santa gets kidnapped and...
Wow, again! Just lampshading and deflecting the few points of criticism I can actually muster. I'm trying to point out tired tropes, you jerks. Let me have this. I'm a lazy internet reviewer.
Do I detect a note of jealousy?
Hey, I work just as hard as that overgrown pixie, but do I get all the media attention? No!
But didn't I see you in some Swedish movie?
Oh, Swedish! Big wow!
I had to look up the fact that this is a reference to 1957's The Seventh Seal, an Ingmar Bergman film that wouldn't see a release in the UK until 2007. Earthworm Jim is significantly more cultured than me.
If you ask me, Santa got what was coming to him. Santa, I'll tell you something about Santa.
Will you shut up about Santa already?
I didn't realize that I needed a bitter, drunken Rudolph in my life, but here we are. Also, thanks.
It wasn't me, I swear! It was some insect with a butt the size of a Macy's parade balloon! Rush Limbaugh!
Haha, good one. Way to dunk on that reactionary right-wing piece of shit, Earthworm Jim. I can't see that joke housing a painful irony down the line.
I am an evil, death-dealing doom machine.
I am a jolly old elf, and you'll laugh when you see me in spite of yourself.
Failing to brainwash Santa, what with him being all omniscient and such, the Queen decides to put a microchip into his head.
Val Kilmer was okay, but for my money, nobody fills a pair of tights like Adam West.
Val Kilmer was okay, but for my money, nobody fills a pair of tights like Adam West.
Yes, he is truly evil!
Wow. Guess I'm evil too.
I knew those aerobics would come in handy.
That was a really good payoff to what I thought was just randomness. The Queen and her controlled Santa head off to microchip all of the sleeping kids on Christmas Eve.
Sorry, wrong room, go to sleep.
If it's going to upset you this much, you shouldn't watch the news.
Thankfully, the heroes ambush the Queen, leaving Jim to fight against Santa. Of course, Jim can't go through with this, so instead he appeals to his good nature and helps him to shake off the mind control.
You may know me as Santa Claus, but in my younger days, I was Wotan!
Oh my goodness.
Norse god of judgment!
Wow. That is not the twist I was expecting. This Santa rules compared to Sonic's depressed one. With the Queen getting incredibly wrecked, Christmas Day rolls around and Jim finally gets his pony. And of course, the episode ends with a "So that was Earthworm Jim's cartoon." Solid all around, save for the odd joke that didn't age well, something something attack helicopter. And at the time of making this video, it's the last piece of Earthworm Jim media that's actually worth getting into, with the Game Boy Color and Nintendo 64 game both kind of sucking, despite them both taking inspiration from this very cartoon. You may have noticed, but I didn't actually make a poll for this episode. I'm instead reviewing it in response to a trailer that I saw. A trailer that left me very, very excited.
Yeah, I've done some TV in the past. I was very young. I was a teenager back then, a bit nuts. Now, just to be clear, I don't want to talk about my days in rehab, but it wasn't very long. I kept my laser gun for them. They love this.
Yes, Earthworm Jim is getting a reboot. And the best thing about it is that Hatsune Miku, in all of her hateful, bigoted scumbaggery, isn't tied to it and won't benefit from it. Wait, no, that ruins the bit. The reason I was referring to Miku as the creator is so I wouldn't have to acknowledge... forget it. Doug TeNapel is a massive Huh?